Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks with Captaincrazyhat. Now, today we're going to be taking a look at this beast. Now, this is and excuse my very poor German, the Großtraktor-Krupp, or as everybody in game knows it as the Großtraktor. Now, I'm going to get a couple questions out of the way first. First one. Yes, this is a Panzer IV hydrostat, and I will be covering that at a later date. And here's the reason why. This is where I've been placing my female crews from the missions that I've been completing, and I need one more to complete my set of female crew members to basically have girls in und Panzer. And once I get my final female crew member, I will do a review of this tank, girls in Panzer style. But today we're looking at this thing. And then one other question that I'm answering and trying to get out of the way. Why am I reviewing these tanks like this, the Hydrostat, the BTSV, the Panzer IIJ? Well, I am going to tell you. Wargaming every weekend has some kind of special or sale or whatever going on. Either it's the Weekend Warrior and nothing else is going on, or something else entirely. And during a lot of special events, or whatever time of year it happens to be, they'll come out with tanks, and they'll say, okay, you have a limited time to acquire this tank, or that tank, and it comes in this bundle, and it costs this much. I want everyone to be informed, because I've seen way too many people, especially in today's example, get a tank and say, this is a pile of crap. And then they sell it. And then they just wasted real money on a tank that was terrible. And I think this was $30 when it was for sale over Christmas or when they introduced it. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but it wasn't cheap. And a lot of people just were so disappointed by this vehicle. And a lot others. A lot of others. Again, internet detectives point out that I am stupid and know nothing about tanks and everything in general. Anyway, moving on. I want all of you that watch these videos to be informed and know what these vehicles are, because I have most of the premium vehicles that have ever been available in World of Tanks. I want you guys to know what they are, how they perform. I want you guys to know everything about them and whether it's worth spending your hard-earned money on any given tank. Because some of them are gems, and if you ever get a chance to get them, you should. Some of them are turds. And this is a humongous turd of a tank. Now, I don't really take swearing lightly on tank reviews, but this tank is terrible. The Großtraktor is a Tier 3 premium tank. Now, as you can see, the thickest armor is literally 14 millimeters thick in the front. That is insignificant. Any Tier 1 tank can pen this. And this is a Tier 3 tank, by the way. Keep that in mind, because all of this is just icing on the turd cake here. This thing is slow. It has 320 hit points. Let's look at another tier 3 premium. Let's see. I mean, I guess compared to the Panzer S35 has a lot of health, but I mean they had to give it a relatively large health pool because it's terrible. I mean, let's see. Let's look at. Okay, so it has about the health pool of maybe a tier 4 tank, because this tank here has the T-25 has over 600, but there's no armor whatsoever. Anything that hits you will pen you. So this leaves you very, very susceptible to getting one-shotted by anything that has like a 10.5 centimeter gun and fires a high explosive round, like the tier 4 Hetzer. And this thing does not get premium matchmaking, so it goes up to tier 5. And I've had it in tier 5 games. And in tier 5 games, you are useless. As for the gun, because the gun is a good place to start on this, you can see that it does 110 damage, 110 damage, 175. Well, that's not too bad, you might say. But it's a short-barreled 75mm gun. Now, in real life, this gun was meant to be a howitzer and deal with infantry and, sandbag emplacements. This is not an anti-tank gun. Your standard AP shells have 43 millimeters of penetration. That is pitiful. If you're in a tier 3 only game, it is okay. But if you get in a tier 4 game, a tier 5 game, it's useless. That's why basically you need to carry about half AP rounds and half AG rounds, which I have about half and half here, with a few heat rounds thrown in, just in case there happens to be some kind of special need that I feel. But I don't think I've ever used heat rounds in this, honestly, because they only have 87 millimeters of pen, and they're expensive. You fire any heat in this and you're going to lose money. So if you're in a tier 5 game or even a tier 4 game, you're going to be stuck lobbing HE shells with 38 millimeters of pen, and that's do 175 damage. And you're going to be against stuff that will have 10.5 centimeter guns that can just pen your armor from the front, from any angle. Even if you were angled, it would still pen your armor. Go right in, explode, and just destroy your tank. This tank gets one-shotted by, well, actually, it can even be almost eviscerated by stuff in its own tier. And even in tier 2 tanks, if you run into a T-18 tank destroyer, which is tier 2, and it has its howitzer, the howitzer equipped, it can pen you with its high explosive round, and it is going to do full damage. The T-82, that'll do full damage. Where are they? Let's find them here. Here it is. The T-18 and the T-82. The 75mm howitzer. 38 millimeters average penetration will do 175 damage. This will wreck your health. It'll do half of your health in damage if you get hit by that. And and this thing has enough frontal armor. There's 51 millimeters of frontal armor. your standard AP shells cannot pen this tier 2 tank destroyer. I know this is another seal clubbing tank of choice, but I mean, if this is like the only occasion where you might think, oh, maybe I should fire high explosive anti-tank at it, because then you could pen and your average damage is 110, and unless you get a low roll, you hopefully can one-shot these before they destroy you. Moving on to their big brother, which is actually in your tier, and now these get the 105mm howitzer. If this has one of those, this has 53mm pen with its standard HE shells, and does 410 average damage. You only have 360 average health. Even if they were firing gold rounds, heat rounds, it still has. It has 101mm of pen. It's going to go directly through you and out the other side. But it still does 350 average damage. Which, if it's even slightly above average, is going to, even if it's at average or below average, that 350 is still going to one-shot you. And that's just at your tier. When you get in fight stuff that's higher than you, you get destroyed. Unless you're a collector, there is no real reason to buy this tank. It is not good for training crews, because you have all of these other German medium premium tanks to train crews in. And the ones that are still available in the German lineup, you can buy, you have the Panther 88, even the T25, even that is better. I would get the T25 if you really needed something, or the Panzer S35 if you really, didn't want to spend very much gold on it, because the purchase price on this is 1,000 gold, and you could wait till a sale and get it for 500. Bottom line is, this thing is terrible. People say the M3 Lee is terrible. This thing is worse. What kind of equipment should you put on it? You have to ask. For one, it can't hardly fit anything at all. And the only reason I even have ventilation on it is because I happen to have an extra one laying around in the garage. Because it would cost, if you just bought it, especially for this vehicle, it would be 150,000 credits. Just for the small increase on a terrible tank. You could get a spall liner, but that really only protects you from explosions that don't penetrate your hull. Which everything that fired at you is going to penetrate your hull. So let's not even kid ourselves. If a high explosive round hits the tip of your barrel, it's going to penetrate your hull. I mean, coated optics. I mean, you could see further, but they're 500,000. It's not worth it. Gun laying drive, not really worth it. I mean, the aiming time, it's 2.2 seconds. It's not really that bad, but this tank is so terrible you wouldn't want to put it on it. Go away, gun. Thank you. Camouflage net. I mean, theoretically, if you have binocular telescope and a camouflage net laying around from some better vehicle, because you can transfer them without having to pay gold, maybe you could put those on. Honestly, if you have this thing and you're gonna put stuff on it, unless you have like extra vents laying around, I wouldn't even recommend putting vents on it. It's a waste. Like, if you're gonna put equipment on it, just put on whatever extra camouflage net, binocular telescope, and a toolbox if you happen to have one laying around. Because this thing is just bad. It really is bad. And I know that I'm talking at length about this, but that's because I really don't want to drive this thing. I really don't. But for you viewers out there, I'm going to drive this thing. I'm gonna grab my binocular telescope and some camouflage net, and just because I have those laying around, and I'll see you on the battlefield, and you can see for yourself just what this thing is like. Oh dear. Alright, here we are on Fjords. And like I said, this does not get premium matchmaking. It really needs it. And here I am in a tier 5 match. I am the only tier 3 on my team. Oh dear. So it's not even worth using AP. Just switch it right over to HE because it's not worth it. Just do the little bit of speck of damage you can. Well, it turns pretty well, which I guess is something. I'm really just like scraping at the bottom of the barrel trying to find something that's decent about this thing. Even with my, 100%, fully experienced crew, I still have, a 5.5 second reload time. I mean, it's, God, it's slow. I mean, you can pretty much do practically 30 max. I mean, it has a good turning circle, but that's not really much to go on. And honestly, having camouflage net and binoculars is probably one of the best things you can have on this thing, so you can just hide somewhere. Your best bet really is to just try and hide and avoid combat and just lob these shells from a distance. And keep in mind that these shells are low velocity, so the flight time is terrible. Okay, so let's lock onto this guy. We aim and aim. Maybe I can see. Okay, multiple layers of concealment, and he's going behind a building or something. So he won't see me if I fire. If he pops up, or he could go. Oh, Su-85I. 16 damage, and I got spotted. Another 16 damage. But you can see the flight time of these shells. They're just so slow. And Artie is shooting at me because I'm just a big, fat target. Especially in a tier 5 match. And the camo rating on this thing is really abysmal. So you'll be spotted all the time. Unless, of course, you're stationary, hiding way at the back and just lobbing these slow HE shells, hoping that you might someday be able to hit something. Oh dear. There's a T-34 over there. I can't hit him. Oh, maybe you'll poke your... Up. See the tip of his turret. And miss. And aim and reload and spotted. Alright, I mean, okay, so that flak bus and that T-25, those are viable targets I might be able to do something against. But I'm not quite sure where they are. My team is winning quite... flak bus, flak bus. Alright. There we go. That's the kind of... These are the kind of targets that we like. Targets without armor. Oh yeah. And I'm going to die. Yep, there we go. Because anything can pen you. But that was really the best sort of target to hit, is something like a flak bus or something else with no armor, like another Großtraktor. Or maybe artillery. But in a tier 5 match like this, you're really not contributing to the team. It's it's one of those things that you'd almost do more damage by driving directly into that river over there. So we're gonna win this one because luckily my team was pretty good this time, and that's good. I've had good luck with teams today. So we'll see you in next. So I'll see you in the next match, and hopefully we'll get in a tier 3 match so I can actually show this thing not being the worst thing on Earth. Just a quick glimpse at the victory scoreboard here from that battle. Most of my damage will have come from that flak bus, but if any of you have driven a flak bus, you know that it really has paper for armor, same as this. And 216 damage. How much of that was from here? 184 was from here, and the Su-85 I did a total of 32 damage. Really not a winner at all. This is not very good. Alright. Let's move on to the next match and see if we can get a match where I'm not completely outclassed. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I had to skip several painful battles, but I finally got into a battle where this tank is top tier, where it can truly shine, or fail to shine. Additionally, while waiting for this dead tank to get out of battle, was reading the wiki, and it basically says don't even bother carrying any AP rounds, because the HE rounds have almost as much pen, and it's just a howitzer. Now, in this particular type of setup, with only tier 3s and only tier 2s, you can sort of make this tank work a little bit. Basically, you end up firing high explosive at just about everything and hoping it pens. Oh dear. LTP. And I didn't pen. But here's one of those situations where heat round would help. And I rolled low and got 98 damage. But I think one final heat round will finish you off. Repair that. Alright. Repair my driver, because that's how video game logic works. Repair the driver. Alright, and we have enemies on the hill. Ooh, and some lightly armored targets, which I like. Alright, here we go. Full damage. Alright, H35. Well, that was fair enough damage. Alright. So, like you're seeing here, if you're top tier, and that's a big if, because I had to just throw out a lot of different battles just because I couldn't get one that I was top tier in until now. You can do okay firing HE at weakly armored targets. Wow, I actually hit on the move. Right, 2 kills. But then again, you know, this tank really just becomes. I mean, it's sort of a reasonably mobile. Sort of a reasonably mobile platform for, you know, a howitzer. But really nothing more than that. I mean, I'm doing 44, and that's cool and great. And, you know, it does turn quite well, so it is maneuverable. It's just the gun and the armor let it down. And essentially, at this low tier, if you can actually get a game at low tier like this, you're pretty much just a glass cannon. I think that's the best way to sum it up. Let's see if I can get some more kills here. Maybe I can get a top gun. If I'm lucky. Alright. There's one tank dead. Can I get this guy? Alright, Top Gun! That's actually my first Top Gun in this. Not bad. And there's a Panzer 1C over there somewhere. Well, for the special auspicious occasion, I will load some heat and chase him down. Never gonna catch him. But, you know. I'm sure someone will eventually decide to... There we go. Someone will eventually cap out and will win by capping. Yeah, this is actually my first ever Top Gun. Oh! And I believe they've lured him into a trap. Oh, and he's mine. If I can just... I think you should be reloading. Boom! And 7 kills. That is actually the best game I've ever had in the Großtraktor. Really. I'm glad I was recording when I captured that, because that's really the best game I've ever had. Ooh. Destroy all enemy light tanks, at least 3. Oh, I've never gotten this medal before. Nade in this medal. Top Gun. Ace Tanker, which... Yeah, well, I guess if you get a Top Gun, you are an Ace Tanker in this thing. Reaper. Fire for Effect. Master Gunner. Duelist. And Bruiser. And... Yep, I came second on the team for damage done. So, overall, that, like I said, that was my best game I've ever had in the Großtraktor. And, you know, you can decide for yourself, you know, if it ever comes up again. I would say, if you're someone who likes steel clubbing, you know, and you can deal with having a glass cannon, you might think about picking it up. Maybe if it was like $5 at most. I mean, $10 is kind of stretching it, but I think the price on this was something like $25 or $30 when it was released. So that's way too much for this tank. It is just a glass cannon. It is only good for fighting tier 3 and 2 tanks, and I just threw away so many recordings of being in tier 5, tier 4 battles and just being steamrolled because I couldn't do anything to help the team, really. I mean, let's see, this is probably my 10th match in a row just to get that that result. So, if you play well and if you're lucky and you get in your top tier, you can do well. This is a relatively mobile medium tank. It traverses pretty quickly. You know, it can be good, but it is a glass cannon. As for me, I dislike this vehicle. I know the joke around the World of Tanks community is that the M3 Lee is the worst tank that ever existed in the plains of Corellia or whatever. But I think this right here, I think this is worse than the M3 Lee. I would take the M3 Lee over this. And this also begs the question, how did I do in money? Because, yeah, I hardly made any profit because some of the targets were too heavily armored for my HE shells, and I fired some heat rounds. So, overall, I can't recommend this tank. You've seen what it is. You've seen everything there is to see about it. Final decision's up to you. I can't recommend it. I'd say play the if you really want to be masochistic, play the M3 Lee. It's, researchable. It doesn't cost real money. If you really want to hurt yourself that bad, then play the M3 Lee. Anyway, that's been another tank review from me, Captaincrazyhat. And if you like this video, hit that like button, favorite, subscribe, share, and if you would like to support the show, head on over to my Patreon and keep this show going. Anyway, until next time, I'll see all of you guys later. Bye bye.